Welcome back to Important Updates, global news without the noise. Subscribe to stay updated. This is gonna blow your mind. On a cold morning in late 2021, a quiet government announcement sent shockwaves worldwide. Lithuania would allow Taiwan to open the Taiwanese representative office, breaking tradition and signaling a major shift. For decades, countries used Taipei to avoid angering China. Lithuania chose Taiwanese. By using Taiwanese, Lithuania acknowledged Taiwan's identity and supported its autonomy. China, which sees Taiwan as a breakaway province, insists on the One China policy. Lithuania's move directly challenged that. The world watched, holding its breath. The story was just beginning. Would others follow Lithuania's lead, or would it stand alone? In Vilnius, the stakes had never been higher. Why did Lithuania take such a risk? The answer lies in its history. Lithuania knows what it's like to live under a powerful neighbor. Decades under Soviet rule shaped its identity. The memory of foreign domination is still fresh. So when Lithuania saw China pressuring Taiwan, it saw echoes of its own past. This created a sense of solidarity with Taiwan. The move was also about values, democracy, sovereignty, and the rule of law. As an EU and NATO member, Lithuania wanted to defend these principles. China's pressure on Taiwan was seen as a threat to the world order. Lithuania's leaders believed someone had to stand up to Beijing. The decision was a test for Europe, too. The EU often struggles to present a united front on China. Lithuania's move forced the issue, putting the bloc's unity to the test. Would Europe back one of its own, or prioritize economic ties with China? The timing mattered. The world was already rethinking its relationship with China. Lithuania's boldness inspired others and fueled debate. It proved that even small countries can make a global impact. Lithuania's stand was about more than foreign policy. It was about defending its own beliefs. The world was watching to see what would happen next. China's reaction was immediate and harsh. Beijing saw Lithuania's move as a direct attack on its sovereignty. China recalled its ambassador and demanded Lithuania do the same. The real blow was economic. Lithuanian imports were blocked, goods left to rot in warehouses. Lithuanian businesses lost access to a growing market overnight. China pressured multinationals to cut Lithuanian parts, threatening global supply chains. China's economic might was on full display. Lithuania became a test case for Beijing's red lines. Lithuania's gamble triggered a global reckoning. The dragon had awakened. Lithuania's clash with China forced the world to react. The United States quickly offered support, praising Lithuania's stand and providing economic aid. For Washington, this was a test of democratic solidarity. The US worked to open new trade opportunities for Lithuania. The European Union's response was more complicated. The EU expressed solidarity and launched a WTO case against China's trade practices. But some major EU members, wary of their own economic ties to China, were cautious. This created tension within the bloc. Strong statements from Brussels, but quieter voices in Berlin and Paris. Other countries took notice. Australia and Japan voiced support, seeing a pattern in China's economic coercion. But many nations stayed silent, not wanting to risk their own relationships with Beijing. The world was divided. The conflict became a symbol of a larger global competition: democracy versus authoritarianism, small states versus giants. Lithuania's stand forced allies to choose sides. The diplomatic standoff was about more than one office in Vilnius. It was about the rules of the international system. The world was watching and taking notes. The lines were being drawn for a new era of global politics. The economic fallout for Lithuania was swift and severe. While trade with China wasn't huge, it mattered for key industries: wood, grain, high-tech components. Suddenly, orders were canceled, contracts broken, and years of work vanished overnight. The uncertainty was crippling. China's secondary sanctions were even more damaging. Multinational companies were told to avoid Lithuanian parts or risk losing access to China. This threatened to isolate Lithuania within Europe's supply chains. China's message was clear: challenge us, and will cripple your economy. Lithuania and its allies fought back. The EU took the case to the WTO, but legal battles take years. In the short term, Lithuania scrambled to find new markets and strengthen ties with other democracies. The US offered export credits to soften the blow. But nothing could fully replace the loss of access to China's vast market. The economic squeeze was a painful lesson in the geopolitics of trade. Lithuania's experience became a warning for others. Trade had become a weapon, and the world was watching. The cost of principle was high, but the message was clear. Inside Lithuania, the diplomatic crisis sparked political turmoil. At first, the public was proud of their government's stand, but as economic pain grew, criticism mounted. Business leaders and opposition parties accused the government of recklessness. Even the president questioned the wisdom of the office's name. The split at the top weakened Lithuania's position, sending mixed signals to allies and adversaries. The EU, meanwhile, began developing new tools to counter economic coercion. Lithuania's ordeal pushed Brussels to act more assertively. For China, the tough response deterred others, but damaged its image in Europe. The wolf warrior diplomacy hardened attitudes and made future cooperation harder. The standoff tested the unity and resolve of all involved. The costs were real and the lessons lasting. The high-stakes game of alliances had changed the rules. Behind the headlines, real people paid the price. Lithuanian businesses lost markets overnight. Family companies laid off workers, scrambled for new buyers, and watched years of effort unravel. The economic and psychological toll was immense. Chinese state media mocked Lithuania, calling it insignificant, aiming to intimidate and demoralize. For Lithuanians, it revived memories of being bullied by larger powers. In China, the story was spun as a defense of sovereignty, fueling national pride. The diplomatic freeze ended student exchanges, tourism, and cultural ties. Flights were canceled, visas harder to get, and bridges between people torn down. The conflict didn't just separate governments, it separated societies. Suspicion replaced curiosity, mistrust replaced friendship. The human cost was deep and hard to measure. The crisis showed how global politics can upend ordinary lives. The scars would last long after the headlines faded. In the end, it was people, not just politicians, who bore the brunt. The story was personal, and the wounds were real. Months of pressure took their toll in Vilnius. The initial confidence faded as economic pain and political cracks appeared. In early 2022, President Nausėda called the use of Taiwanese a mistake, a sign of possible retreat. The government was divided. The president urged compromise. The foreign minister stood firm. Beijing's strategy was working, exposing rifts in Lithuania's leadership. Some politicians and business leaders floated a compromise, changing the office's name to ease tensions. But backing down risked signaling that economic coercion works. It could disappoint allies and embolden China. The government was trapped between principle and pragmatism. The idea of a subtle concession was debated, but no easy solution emerged. The stakes were high for Lithuania's reputation and alliances. The crisis became a lesson in the costs of standing up and the risks of backing down. The path forward was fraught with uncertainty. Lithuania's dilemma was a warning for small democracies everywhere. The world watched to see which way Vilnius would turn. Today, the Lithuania-China relationship remains fragile. The Taiwanese representative office still stands, but the boldness of 2021 has given way to caution. Lithuania learned hard lessons about the costs of defiance. The future depends on China's strategy, EU unity, and US support. Lithuania is diversifying trade and building ties with other democracies. The goal balance principle with economic stability. The story is about more than one small country. It's about the clash of values, the struggle of small states, and the ripple effects of global decisions. The road ahead is uncertain, but the world is watching. Lithuania's experience will shape international relations for years to come. In the 21st century, courage comes in all sizes. The lessons of Vilnius echo far beyond its borders. The next chapter is still unwritten.